What is going on? My name is Jerry, and welcome to another episode of Musical Hideout, the show where we hang out with artists, musicians, and entertainers in Waylon Jennings' old basement studio. As always, I am gathered here with co-host Ryan Poole, who I'll pass it to introduce the guests.
Well, tonight we have a very expected and very pre-planned guest.
I've been waiting for this moment for literal hours.
Sitting right across from me, Kyle Pudenz. It's Pudenz, right?
Yes, you actually said it right. Congratulations. You're in the top, 15th percentile.
How do you spell that?
It's Pudenz.
Oh.
And I get an extra plosive for that P right there. That was good stuff. Oh, yeah.
Pudenz.
Plosives.
Okay, because when he said it, I was like, it sounds really close to Putin.
Yeah, but not wrong
But it's
country.
not spelled even close.
So this is Germany, not
Okay.
Russia. So, we don't associate with those guys.
Is there a lot of Z's in Germany?
Yeah.
I feel like I don't hear that very often.
I mean, the number 2 is what, Zwei? That starts with a Z. So
I'm not a Germanologist or anything, but
Germanologist. Expert on germs?
I don't know, just wondering. Since you're the expert from German.
Yeah, I mean, I visited Germany once. I toured there for about a week and a half, and it was great because every single hotel I checked into, they were like, "Thank you, Mr. Pudenz." And I was like, this has never happened before. Usually it's, "Thank you, Mr. Long pause. Pudenz." Nope, not it. It's like I was watching Thor: Love and Thunder with my roommate earlier today, and they'd have this recurring bit that keeps going where one of the characters is like trying to do this secret whistle, and he just like, "Nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it." It's that's how it is with like having this last name. They're like, "Pudenz, nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. Pundit, nope, that's not it."
Oh, try having the first name Jury. Like every time I introduce myself, I'd be like, "Oh, my name is Jerry." Like Jerry, I'm like Jury. Like Jared, Jury. Like 12 guys in a courtroom.
So did the phrase jury rigging originate with you?
Yeah, I invented that shit. You ever heard of Runaway Jury? That's me. No.
Awesome.
Anyways, not to interrupt your intro. So you have the name out, and we just cut you off at the knees.
We've covered the name now. That's great. We're gonna get so much riveting discussion out of this. I can already tell.
Kyle is a violinist / fiddler, depending on how much you pay him.
/ guitar / banjo / literally, if you pay me enough, I'll learn the instrument. Let's be honest. Like,
it doesn't take that much. $8, $9 a new instrument.
yeah, I mean, depending on it really does vary with the price of the instrument. I've had a band for about a month now that's telling me that if I just learn the pedal steel, I can tour Europe with them. And I'm like, great, but you have to pay me enough to buy a pedal steel, and those things not cheap.
Like if they wanted you to learn the nose flute, you'd be like, all right.
Yeah, or like a jaw harp or something. I'd be like, yeah,
No
penny
problem.
whistle, like great. Pedal steel, like geez, like that's a $3,000 investment minimum.
Yeah. And Kyle is actually
This episode's just going to be called The Intro.
the intro.
Just take it the whole time.
And Kyle is I met you through Zach Ummer,
That is right.
who
Friend
was
of the show.
friend of the show, very recent guest,
Friend of the hideout.
and very long ago guest as well. and y'all met at Belmont University.
Yes, we did. And Belmont, I'm assuming, checks in the mail for bringing you up multiple times on this podcast, which I will do.
I brought Belmont up
Proud alumni right here.
100 times. I used to work there.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, but I usually do to talk shit.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Ooh, usually people won't talk shit about Belmont with me. And I don't work there anymore.
Oh yeah,
Man, I was a scholarship kid. I got all the shit to talk.
We had a recent episode, and he was like saying something bad about Belmont, and they were like clammed up, and he was like, "Well, you didn't say that about Belmont. It was me.
I said about Belmont."
I said that." He's like, "Got nothing bad to say about Belmont." Okay.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm off the hook because the president that was the president while I was there has since retired. So
Thank God. You can't fire me now.
Yeah.
Thank God. Money grubbing.
Wow, there's strong feelings about Belmont here.
Okay.
Specifically
Well,
about the president.
We'll get into that. And what was I going to say? I don't remember anymore.
You were talking about Zach Ummer, which is
Zach Ummer.
a very deep well to get into.
A deep well. And so we met, and you played with my band for 2 different shows.
Yes.
And so anyway, that's how we're acquainted. And I wanted to ask you, before we get into Belmont, before we get into your current day, where I should say you work as a full-time touring musician.
Yes.
As well as a studio musician. Oh, and by the way, I didn't actually meet you through Zach. We had worked together on a
That's
record
right.
years ago.
Yeah, I did some string overdubs for you.
Yeah, remotely. And I had seen your name.
Which is also something I do.
Yeah. And before
My website will now flash across the screen.
But before we come into you becoming a professional, full-time musician, how did little Kyle start playing in music?
How did little
out
Kyle
in
start?
Columbia, Missouri?
All right, so Columbia, Missouri, as we all know, is one of the foremost hotbeds of musical talent in the entire North American continent.
It is known.
If you've been to Columbia, Missouri, you know that I am lying at this point. Most of my family still doesn't understand what I do for a living. They're all asking, so when's Kyle going to move back home? And my parents were like, actually, we're moving to Nashville because it's way cooler there. So
what do people in Columbia do? Is it like a farming town, a factory town?
It's a college town.
It's a college town.
University of Missouri, go Tigers, is actually in Columbia, Missouri. So you get a lot of people that work at the university, and then outside of that, you just have your stereotypical Midwestern town with, every chain restaurant that chains and a music scene that is, I will say for a town of Columbia's size, it's a very thriving local music scene, a very supportive local music scene. But it's definitely nothing on the level of Nashville, where you can go on Tuesday and see a Grammy winner playing in a random dive bar. That's really more the vibe that I feed off of. But so growing up in Columbia, I started taking Suzuki violin lessons when I was at the wee age of 8 years old. And then at the same time, I was also learning fiddle music, like old time fiddle music, from my grandpa, who was like a hobbyist leisure time musician in his retirement. He used to play a lot of jams, doing like bluegrass and country western. So it was this, this sort of separation where I had like the classical violin chops over here, very rigid, very like, don't improvise, play the way that Bach would have played it. And then you have the fiddle music, which is just like, you do you, man, like come up with notes. Some of them will be right, and that will be cool. And then I finally I found the marriage of the two, if you will, when I was about, I think I was 15 years old. And I had a cousin of a cousin who was a singer-songwriter. I didn't even know what a singer-songwriter was at that point in my life. Because, again, Columbia, Missouri, you don't really understand the concept. I was like, wait, there are people that write songs and then just play them in front of crowds? But no one published that. No one, and so that was my first chance to kind of like show off the improv chops in a setting that wasn't like a bunch of old people picking banjos. So I quickly discovered that kind of music was something that people in my age group were much more into than the classical or the old-time fiddle music. And so I sort of ran with that, and the two of us ended up forming a band called Man in the Ring, that for the next 2 years we played all around the state of Missouri. We did actually get to go play South by Southwest one time. That was sort of our crowning achievement. And I that was sort of like, at that point, I realized that like playing with bands was what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be in a symphony orchestra. I didn't want to play fiddle contests for the rest of my life. Like, I wanted to be in bands. I wanted to play rock and country and whatever I could get my hands on. And so that sort of naturally led to Belmont University being the kind of place where you can actually get a degree in violin performance, but it's not just about classical or jazz music. It's about everything in between.
Mm-hmm. That was like hella succinct.
Great job.
You can tell I've told that story before, right?
Oh, well, I mean, not to just force it, but
seems like you're about to force.
But
something.
yeah, I was like, well, you just mentioned Belmont again.
Yeah.
And for the podcast listeners, he's forcing it.
I haven't really talked about Belmont much since I quit there, but I don't know. But I mean, my experience as someone who worked there must be varied. I worked in financial aid.
Oh God!
So if
you were my least favorite person,
no, I would have been your favorite person because my job was to give away all the money.
I don't know about that. My dad had an angry conversation with financial aid between my junior and senior year that I'm pretty sure lasted the better part of a day. And what he told me is he knew going into it he was going to lose, but he just wanted to see how far it could go.
When did you graduate?
2014.
Okay, so that was before I ever worked.
Yeah,
for sure.
What's the Keanu Reeves movie where he's a badass
All of them.
gunslinger, more modern?
John Wick?
Yeah.
Oh.
Your dad sounds like John Wick with that description.
My dad
he knew
is-
he was going to lose, but he wanted to see how far he could go.
My dad is a character, guys. It's these days he goes by the East Nashville handyman. That's his preferred title. He basically, he's quote unquote retired, but he still brings in all of his income helping the desperate housewives of East Nashville fix things that they don't know how to fix.
Sounds like a TV show.
It should be. It really should be. I mean, the stories that he tells are even more hilarious than his days working in the hayfields and working on cars. Like, it's tremendous.
Yeah. But,
Sorry, you were going to talk shit about Belmont. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to ask you. Because my experience as an employee of Belmont, the things that I complain about, the things that I can't stand about Belmont is how they run their business. Mm-hmm. I have no idea really what it's like from a student's. I've heard both goods and bads. I don't know because I was never a student there.
So what I'll say about this is I would not be where I'm at in my career, in my life as a musician, if it was not for the experience I had at Belmont. Like, that was absolutely paramount to me getting to where I am today, for better or worse. The other thing I'll say is that there are, as specifically as like a string player, like a bowed string player, there are faculty at Belmont that have methods of teaching that you will not find anywhere else in this country.
Really?
And so for me, the biggest takeaway was and is just the lesson time that I spent with the faculty there made me a better player than I ever could have been just like hacking it on my own. So that's a big thing for me. Now, on the flip side, what I will say is there's a lot of kids who get sucked into what we call the Belmont bubble. And they're there for 4 years absolutely crushing it. They're in all the best ensembles. They're winning all the competitions. They're at the showcases. They're doing all the best classes. Everyone worships them because they're so popular. And then they graduate and the rest of Nashville goes, "I'm sorry, who are you?" So it really is, there's so much to be said for finding the balance of being at Belmont and being in Nashville and making sure that you remember not to just be a part of the Belmont scene, but to be a part of the Nashville scene, because that's what's going to carry you forward into your actual career.
Yeah, I used to tell kids that. And I'm not really a musician. I mean, I play guitar,
You
but
used to tell kids that?
I used to tell kids that all the time because they'd come in and they'd be paying $50,000 a year for a degree in songwriting, and I can't tell them, "Hey, don't do this," because I can't do it. I get fired. And so what I would tell them is, "Hey, if you want to learn how to write songs, go out and like writing rooms and shit and go meet people and go meet musicians. They're everywhere.
Go to rounds, go to NSAI, go to,
And I would tell them just like, don't just stay here. And that's just from me knowing very little about how all that works.
For our marketing, I should start writing like former Belmont employee Jury Bird and just create controversy that way. Don't you think?
Yeah. But from an education side, I don't really have any complaints because I don't know.
The songwriting major was actually the most perplexing to me, because I've found in so many experiences at going to that college in particular, like if you think of the disciplines that they offer, audio engineering, songwriting, music performance, it seemed like in so many cases the people at the school that you knew that were the best in those disciplines did not have that major. And I guess that's kind of the beauty of it, though, is that, like, there were definitely music business majors that were better musicians than the kids in the School of Music. There were definitely songwriters that were, like, music biz majors or keyboard performance majors that were writing songs well beyond the level of most of the quote-unquote songwriting majors. It's such it's almost in a sense like it didn't really matter what program you were in. It was what you did with the time you were there that really counted. And I think there's a lot of attitude just with, not even at Belmont exclusively, just with college degrees in particular and musicians, where you think that just because you walk away with that piece of paper, you're entitled to get a gig.
Yeah, that's not real life.
Folks, if you have a child who's about to enter the collegiate system as a musician,
Tell them to not.
please do not believe that. The piece of paper gets you nothing. It's the connections you make. It's the chops that you have as a musician. The degree you really could throw out the window, save for the 1 or 2 auditions you'll get every decade where for some odd reason they want to see a music degree on your resume.
Yeah.
But even then, there's going to be an audition beyond that.
I've got my piece of paper.
My degree is currently.
You've got a piece of paper.
It's in the other room, and it's currently covered up by a picture of country stars Jimmy Allen and Lindsay L. Because they came to the studio to do a video, and they wanted to use a frame and make it look like they had a picture of themselves. They wanted to make it look like they had been here or something. So we put their picture in it, covering my degree. And as much as it's a little disrespectful to me, I feel like it's more valuable that people see that country stars Jimmy Allen and Lindsay L have been in my studio.
I think that picture is going to get you more business than the degree. I can almost promise you that.
Yep.
But like, I went to college, right? I went to 4 or 5 colleges, and I eventually got my degree. And then after that, I worked in colleges. I worked in four
Almost
different
only colleges until now.
Yeah, until recently, I was so involved in the college system, and I've got to say, the whole thing's a scam. And unless you're trying to be a doctor or a lawyer or some like specialized thing that requires certain education, don't go to college. It's a waste of your time and money. You can learn all those same things anywhere else.
Yeah, as soon as you...
This has been a PSA, but...
And that was the college minute.
No, but my big complaints about Belmont were really about the money.
As soon as you said financial aid, I was like, oh, if Carrie Pudenz could get a hold of this. Like,
I wonder.
And
it's
here's another thing.
But I always make me wonder, like, who you talk to. So I'm like, I bet I know him.
Because as I mentioned, I was a scholarship kid, and there was a very heated argument between my dad and financial aid about why I was not allowed to apply my scholarship to the semester where I graduated early.
Oh, yeah.
And they were not having any of it. He was like, well, it says here that, like, he gets, this amount of money, and you're telling me now that he gets less because he did too good of a job?
Because it's awarded for 8 semesters.
Yes.
That's exactly how it is. It's awarded for 8 semesters. If you only go 7, that's on you.
But he was like, so
bullshit.
I technically went 8 semesters because I did take lessons over the summer. And so he was like, I see 8 semesters on paper.
Yeah,
and
summer's different, though.
Yeah. Well, 8 semesters doesn't include, and he's like, I have the paperwork. It does not say anything about the summer. You can just see where this goes. This is my dad. Again, he knew he was going to lose, but he was going to go down fighting. This is Game of Thrones shit. Like,
Well, with that, I have a few more things to say about college education and musicians, but
More
I
thoughts.
feel like we should jump into a song.
Yeah,
so,
we should let the people know what you hear like.
yeah, so now that we've bitched about my collegiate experience for entirely too long.
To be fair, I've bitched a little harder than you. I'm like predetermined to bitch about
You
it.
can tell how hard I'm fighting to stay neutral, right? I'm like, here's the good, here's the bad.
Well, Belmont does have a lot of good.
Yeah, like I said, I would not be the musician I am today without going there, and that holds true.
Yeah, they just run their business like a shady corporation that steals money from 18-year-olds.
So
That's the real problem.
Just like a corporation in general, then.
Yeah.
But with that, we're going to go into a song. Damn it, Jury.
Are we?
Hey, you're gonna love this. There's a tie-in here, right?
Ooh.
So this tune I'm about to play, I actually, it's a short tune. It's a short tune, but it makes up for its shortness in length with the number of notes I'm about to play. And I wrote this for a corporate gig that I was gonna play at a convention for bankers.
Wow.
I get some really random gigs, y'all. Like, it's a hustle out there. But so one year I had a banking convention that for some reason they wanted to feature an electric violin player. And they had me put together a trio to play this gig. And I was, obviously surprised, but I'd be less surprised today if I got the gig because I now understand there's this whole scene of, like, wealthy companies looking to spend their entertainment budget to be like, let's bring in a violin player and have him fiddle for us, and it will be entertaining, and we will clap lightly because we've paid for him to be here. So I wrote this really shreddy intro to the show. So this is a tune that I wrote for an instrumental performance at a corporate gig, and I loosely based it off of Eddie Van Halen's Eruption with some more sort of violin idiomatic things in mind. Since it was at a convention for bankers, I decided to name this tune Corruption.
And we're back.
Holy shit. So what inspired you to write a song like Eruption on the violin?
So it really was more or less that that it was for a gig. Most of the cool things I've stumbled on in my life compositionally have been due to a specific gig. This one is no exception. The reason I was hired for the gig is they found this YouTube video of me at a NAMM show, not like doing a performance. It was like someone shot a cell phone video when I was at a booth trying out amps. And I was just like playing random shreddy crap, you know, just like, oh, like, let's see how this thing burns on the drive channel, and just and they're like, we want you to play that. And I'm like, that's not like a song. That's just wanking. And, and they're like, yeah, well, we want you to wank for 5 minutes at the beginning of the show. And I was like, how about I wank for 1.5 minutes in a slightly organized fashion? And, you know, immediately Eruption came to mind because, like, it's...
Because wanking.
You think of it, it's a standalone, but it's also just this really awesome intro to You Really Got Me. And so I had an opening song already planned for that set, and I was like, well, this will just be the eruption of this. And like, so it for the music nerds among you, you'll notice that it ends on a dominant 7 harmony, which was supposed to resolve to the key of D minor because the next song in D minor. But when you just play it by itself, you just leave him hanging, and that's, you know, more avant-garde that way, that you've just got these unresolved harmonies that you'll have to deal with for the rest of the night in your brain.
Cool. Really stuck on dominant sevenths. So anyway, so we were talking shit about Belmont. I'll say this, and well, we
are we continue talking shit about Belmont? I was ready to let it go,
about music college.
I'm gonna get blacklisted for this, and I'm still over here trying to stay neutral.
That's true. You know what's great? Anyway, so I'll say this about my musical education and my degree currently covered by country stars Jimmy Allen and Lindsay Lohan.
Which was not at Belmont, to be clear.
Yeah, I wasn't at Belmont. I was at the Art Institute, but
now defunct.
I believe this, and I think I've said this on the show before, that I think the process of going through college was huge for me. I think I learned so much during that time. I don't think I'd be where I am without it. I think it was great. But the thing that was great was learning the things and having opportunities to do projects, having the assignments, trying new things, having to create things in lanes I didn't want to create in.
Yeah.
And then a few connections, less so at the Art Institute of California for Nashville, but actually my first and biggest connections in Nashville were through that down the road. And probably one of the more influential classes I had, wasn't my favorite, but something that comes up for me a lot is an experimental sound design class I had, where we had to tell stories through sound. And
I'm picturing Ross Geller at his keyboard, and like this is you. These are soundscapes.
We had to do tell a story through sound is a pretty nebulous prompt, but just using raw sound effects and trying to create a narrative or an arc through that gets you to think creatively in a way that you're not going to if you're only learning about recording a band.
Yeah.
And those skills come up for me all the time when I'm working with music, when we're trying to make music a little more special. And those kinds of things that I did back then, I'm like, one time I recorded a whatever it was. I did a song with a band recently where the song was called Clover. We're actually going to have them on in 2 weeks, the Robertsons. And they had this whole section that they were like, they said something about every penny. And so we went into the bathroom and we recorded them dropping coins into the water and recorded those sound effects and then made a beat out of it.
Yeah.
And so for the average listener, you're just going to hear a new beat that enters in that section. You're going to think it's cool. But if you spend any time thinking about it, you'll realize it sounds like coins dropping in water. It's a lot like Money by Pink Floyd.
It's a wishing well.
Exactly. It's wishing well. Oh, yeah. They say wishing well in it.
There it is.
Exactly. And so you just get a subtle cue. If you're not listening deeply, you hear a beat. If you think about it at all, you get a wishing well vibe.
Yeah.
And it's little things like that I got from random classes to think a little bit outside of the box that come up all the time to be cool.
Okay.
So the college experience.
But I have a follow-up question for that.
Okay.
Which is, you didn't go to that college, so that your main college where you went the whole time and got the degree.
Yeah.
Right out of high school.
No.
You went several years later, quite a bit later.
Yeah. Several years.
Do you think it would have been as valuable at 17, at 18?
No.
Not at all, right? You have to be an adult first to realize the value that you can get at that.
That was one of my best advantages there. Granted, a lot of people weren't coming right out of high school going to the Art Institute. You get a lot of people at the Art Institute.
I used to work there too.
He did.
Just financial aid there too.
That is the connector. Jury worked at both of our colleges.
Wow, look at that. It's like one big happy family over here.
There were a lot of people who were going because of the GI Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the Art Institute San Diego specifically had so that's the one I worked at, had a massive military population.
Oh my God, you worked at both of our specific
locations.
colleges.
Yeah,
That's
because the GI Bill pays you a monthly allowance based on the zip code your college is in. And the zip code of the Art Institute San Diego is middle of San Diego. It's expensive. So they were getting $2,200 a month just to go there.
Yeah, so we got a lot. So, but yeah, I will say I noticed in my degree program, most of the people did not end up going into studio recording. Most of them did not end up doing what they set out to do.
Yeah.
But it was a highly transformative experience for me, but the majority of people weren't able to take advantage of it because I think they were still thinking like school, like high school, where you just show up and do your assignments and you think that will take you somewhere.
But you get out what you put in.
Yeah.
I will continue along your thought here. And I will say that specifically in the music industry, and this is such a polarizing thing, and I don't even personally know where I stand on it because there's such this dichotomy of on one side there's the debt, and student debt can absolutely ruin a music career.
Well, and it has ruined the entire economy of our country.
Yeah, it's the type of thing that that's having debt is what leads people to quote unquote sell out. They say, I have to make money somehow. And that's when they start cutting corners. They start taking the gigs they don't want to do, and they lose their creative edge because of that. On the flip side, the collegiate experience, I feel like for me was such a safer space to learn how to deal with the types of people that you're going to meet in the actual music industry. But if you screw it up in college, you haven't burned your career.
Yeah, it's kind of fine.
And you learn from that. Whereas if you just throw yourself right into the music industry and you don't understand how to deal with the types of people, and by the types of people, I mean that there's like 10 types of people that you meet when you're going to college at a school like Belmont.
Number one.
And you're like, hey, I at the time you're thinking, these people are idiots. Once I become a real professional musician, I'll never have to deal with people like this. Wrong. As soon as you get out of college, you're going to be like, every time you meet one of those super annoying people, you're going to be like, oh, I've met you before in this college class where I made you my enemy and it didn't work out well, and I learned from that. And so now I know how to be more personable, how to maybe let some things slide, have a better relationship with this person that I don't like, but that I know can get me the gigs that I want to get. And that's something that is really hard to put a price tag on, how valuable that is, because it's not the subject material that they're teaching at the school. It's the relationships that naturally form when you have built essentially this scale model of the music industry within a college campus. And so for me, absolutely beneficial. That was maybe the most beneficial thing, because I grew up an only child. My social skills sucked. They still suck. Having the experience of finally like being on your own, but in this semi-controlled environment of the college, was invaluable to me, like getting to be the type of person I needed to be to succeed in the industry. I also do not have student debt because I had a scholarship. And so that makes me unlike almost anyone else. I don't want to compare myself. It's
a little bit of a different experience.
Because I came out with all of that experience and none of that debt. I had all of the good and none of the bad. I have so many other friends that have been, fighting student debt for their whole career. And it's just like, this is so different for you because the amount of money that you have to make in a given month to pay your expenses is more than double what mine is, and we're doing the same thing.
Right.
And that's what's the frustrating in it. Yeah, absolutely.
So what you're talking about, right? You this experience, this kind of like not quite real life experience, but kind of an in between to get you there.
Yeah.
And you say you can't put a price on that. I would say less valuable than $200,000, which is what 4 years of Belmont costs. But
I honestly do agree with you.
But the main reason is because you can get that somewhere else.
If you don't have the scholarships, it's a lot harder to sell. It really is. So do your homework in high school, kids. Get that GPA up.
Like I know I sound like it. I am not 100% anti-college. I am mostly anti-college, but not 100%. I think there's a lot of times to go to college, and if you want to go to college, just do it smart.
Yeah.
But if you are just trying to get a degree because that's what you've heard that you should do, don't. It's literally not. You can do so many other things that you don't even need a degree. And degrees are becoming less and less valuable anyways. More people are realizing over time that it's just not needed. It's just a piece of paper. It's a diploma.
Yeah.
I think the new tagline of the show is going to be former Belmont University employee Jury Bird questions successful Belmont students and tries to figure out if college is worth it.
Yeah, but college didn't actually do that for you.
I think there's a lot of good out of college. I think a lot of good can.
The Is College Worth It podcast.
I'm just a little bitter.
By
I
the
have
way,
seen it myself a lot.
There is a button that I really want to press. I don't know what it does.
What?
Oh, God.
It was at this moment that he knew he fucked up.
Okay, good to know.
That's me getting my name crossed out from the honorable alumni list.
Yeah, the sounds are new the last few episodes, and we don't have memorized what they all do. So we just guess.
That one, it says this moment, and I really thought it was going to be this magic moment.
That's a good one, though. We should put that on the soundboard.
Wesley, can you please
make a note of that?
Yeah. I want
He's got us. We got a thumbs up.
Magic moment. I'll call it magic moment.
We also need the more you know.
Oh, 100%. Please get a reading rainbow. A reading rainbow and the more you know. But hard subject change. I was reminded by looking at your bio site that you had a CNN article write-up.
I did, yes.
Ooh.
How did that come about?
This was a pandemic thing specifically.
And bada boom, bada bing, we earned a learn more about COVID-19 banner on Spotify.
Yes, we did.
We got one for Zach's episode, by the way. Did you see that?
No.
We got to learn more about COVID-19 for Zach.
Did we even talk about COVID?
Well, yeah, because Zach started recording his new music during COVID-19.
Oh.
And we talked about that.
You've said it like 5 times now. We're getting there.
COVID-19.
I felt like we're like Joe Rogan, that we had a COVID-19 banner. I was like, whoa, we're so professional.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, obviously it was one of the most difficult things that the music industry has faced in my lifetime. Like probably the most difficult thing that the music industry has faced in our lifetime. And I was there were a lot of different ways that people initially were trying to find to recover what we had lost, because folks, if you're not a part of the music industry and you're listening to this, first of all, welcome. It's glad to have the 5 of you with us. Second of all, there was a span of about a week or two there where most of us in the touring music scene lost our next 3 to 6 months of gigs in about 3 to 6 days.
But that felt real
and
nice.
Just watched it fall apart every day. 5 or 10 more cancellations would come in, and we're freaking out because it's like, okay, this is late spring, early summer. This is my most profitable time of year. This is when all the gigs are, and suddenly they are just dropping off. And we didn't know if we were going to qualify for unemployment because it didn't cover self-employed people at that moment. And we're like, what are we actually going to do? Enter the world of live streaming.
Yeah.
And so many of us were on Facebook Live, on Instagram Live, on Twitch, every couple of days or every week doing streams and requesting donations. And that was how a lot of us got by for the entire extent of the lockdown. My roommate and I did a weekly live stream on Facebook called Benny and Boo Boo's Walk of Shame, which we shot in our guest cabin.
Were you Benny or Boo Boo?
I'm Boo Boo. Yeah. And all we would do is we would just like bring a few random instruments with us, and we would take requests from people to play songs. And sometimes we knew them, sometimes we didn't. We'd hack our way through. We would make it up as we went along, and then we would erase the footage as soon as the show was done. And so it was this very like, which was funny. It actually made this more like exclusive thing. It was like you had to be there. It made it more like a concert. So we did that. But I also guested on several other people's live streams that came out of this. And so one of them that I appeared on a few times actually was called Music Saving Musicians. And it was done, it was mainly put together by a guy named Ben Andrews, who's a percussionist in this town. Great guy, literally saved my life for those 2 months with the money that I made playing that stream. I kid you not. Like, it was, people were so generous. And it was like, that was my rent money for that month.
That's
was like
crazy.
the Music Saving Musician stream. But so CNN got a hold of the Music Saving Musicians people because they were featured on the local news here in Nashville. And so I was then put in touch with a writer from CNN who was doing profiles on several different people. She even expanded it to the arts industry. So she went into like dancers and visual artists, and she just did these profiles on like, she'd check in with me every couple of months and be like, okay, so how are things? What is happening right now with the music industry? And over the span of about a year and a half, she built a profile of like, this is how musicians have navigated the pandemic, and this is why now that things are reopening, you need to go buy their concert tickets. Like,
That's
because
awesome.
they have fought to be here. They've worked their asses off just to get by for long enough to start playing out again, and now it's here, and like, I'm so grateful for that experience, and to CNN for like giving a personal glimpse into what it looked like for us, not just what it looked like in what we presented to people in our live streams, in the content that we were putting out. Like, this is actually what it felt like. And so it was great. But yeah, and so for that reason, I got to be featured in CNN, which was awesome.
Yeah, that's super cool. So with the pandemic, like you were saying, you had to find other ways of doing it.
Yes.
Which anything in the entertainment industry, a lot of times had to. You see a lot more live streams, a lot more things like that. And
yeah, we're quite adaptable, as we learned.
Right. And everyone says, like, well, what's the phrase? When things are bad, there's a word for that. Tragedy?
When life gives you lemons?
Yeah, when life gives you lemons, or tragedy
you
breeds...
squeeze them in people's eyes.
There's like a phrase, like tragedy breeds innovation or something.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Adversity breeds innovation.
Adversity breeds innovation. But I found myself most of the time during the pandemic not caring about that. Because like that's not how I like necessarily to enjoy these things. And a big one for me personally, like, are you a stand-up comedy?
Oh yeah.
Stand-up comedy fan. So we are both pretty big stand-up comedy fans. And I don't go to a lot of live shows and whatnot. But there was also like a lot less specials and stuff coming out. And the ones that were coming out were like to 8 people and and like these tiny audiences, and they weren't that good.
Bo Burnham in
and
his
then
room.
Bo Burnham's came out. And I was not that interested. I was like, I don't watch. I don't really like music comedy to begin with that much.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll give it a shot. And that blew my mind. I was like, this is new.
Yeah.
Like I haven't seen something make something that is new in forever.
I've not had something resonate so hard with my own personal experience as that did in quite some time. Just because you could see the battle between, like, I want to be creating and I want to be doing stuff and I have all this time, and then just, like, this weird burnout that happened where it was like, well, if I'm not playing this in front of people, why does any of it matter? Why do I even want to do this?
Right.
And
like, what's the point?
Yeah, and like, you could see that, you could feel that in that special. And then there's the bangers like the Jeffrey Bezos song, which I think
I was humming that song for like a month. It's Jeffrey Bezos.
I will not name my source, but I can say from a confidential informant that works at Blue Origin that all the employees do sing that song.
Oh yeah, but that just blew my mind. That was the first time I was like, oh, like here's something coming out of this that's gonna be awesome. Like who's gonna do the next thing like this?
Yeah.
And you say the same thing with, like, you heard about comedians doing, like, parking lot shows and musicians doing all sorts of crazy different things. Anything they can do to play in front of people.
It was wild, dude. Like, I had a guy, I have a friend out in California, actually, in SoCal, who he's a really big, like, Latin/hip-hop violinist, and he did a taco truck tour. Where he went all around playing outside of taco trucks. Like,
that's amazing. Wow. And like you just had to come up with something new. You couldn't just do it the same old way.
Yeah. By the way, that guy's name, if you want to look him up, is Patrick Contreras, and he's a great player. If you buy his sheet music, I actually engrave that as well. So, support your boy.
Engrave?
Yes, I do. One of the many side hustles that I embraced, particularly during the pandemic, is I not only arrange music, but I do like transcribing and engraving work, which basically means putting the notes on the paper and making them look good on sheet music.
So how? What does that entail?
So
when you say engraving, when you say engraving, my mind goes to stone.
Yeah, so
I'm like, you're not carving stone tablets of sheet music, are you?
Engraving is the somewhat archaic term for the process in which you actually typeset the notes on the page. So if you just go into your music notation software of choice and you input all the notes as they are played, it won't necessarily look right to someone who's trying to read it. It's kind of, if you think of terms like kerning when it comes to like graphic design and lettering, it's a similar idea. It's, how far should these notes be spaced apart? How many measures should be on this line? Like, where should I put the bar lines and the repeat signs so that this like looks legible and normal to a musician? And it used to be a lot more involved than it is now, because now we have more advanced software. We have AI working with it. But yeah, basically my job in a situation like that is, someone will send me their album and they say, here's these recordings, and I want sheet music done where I have like the violin line, the vocal line, the whatever, written out with chord symbols for people who want to play along, and make it look professional. And so that's my job, is I transcribe it, and I write up the sheet music, and I hand them this very nice looking PDF that they can sell to their fans. And so that's one that I did was Patrick Contreras out in Southern California. Fantastic player. It was a fun project to work on.
Now, you mentioned, not to purposefully take us off topic,
I
but
see where this is going.
you mentioned AI.
Oh, God.
Now, because this is something that frustrates...
Is it taking over our world?
Oh,
Yes.
no, it definitely is. But
It's already won. The battle's over.
yeah, we lost a lot. We lost the second we thought of the idea. But one thing that bugs me is I'm like, is it AI? Is it artificial intelligence? Or is it just a fucking algorithm that does shit? Because, like, what's the difference? We call everything AI nowadays. I don't know. Like, I'm like, is it really AI? I feel like if we actually have created real AI, like,
You know
we
what
lost.
would be great? We should bring in a software developer for this question.
Yeah, you should.
Software developer Jury Bird. What do you think?
I'm not that deep into software development. I haven't worked on AI. But I just think I think it's weird that we label everything as AI powered. Everything has AI in it. Like, I don't think we actually have actual intelligence that we have created yet.
Well, so there was I saw an article a while ago about someone invented a program that was like speaking for itself. Right? Am I crazy? This is a thing that
Well, there was
happens.
that robot chick.
Are you talking about at Google?
Well,
recently,
probably.
recently there was a guy at Google who got convinced by an AI Google's creating. I forget the name of it. Wesley, could you look up the Google
Yes,
AI?
please.
And a guy got convinced that it was actually alive, and so
it passed the Turing test.
Well, they're like not saying that, but yeah, I agree. That is passing the
Like, that
Turing
is what
test.
that means, right?
But it convinced a guy that it was alive, and then people are like, no. It's just using language, and there's a whole explanation for why it's okay.
All right. Here it is. So what was the name?
Hi Lambda.
Lambda.
Oh, hi Lambda. Gotcha.
Yeah. Blake Lemoine was the guy. So he got tricked that it was actually alive, and so he whistle blew, and shared secrets that Google did not like, and they fired him.
Wow.
Because he
knew.
He asked it a lot of questions, and it felt trapped and taken advantage of. But what they said is that it was programmed to know our language and articles. I'm not explaining it well.
It sounds
right
like they're
now.
trying to say it's not AI, but they
Exactly.
definitely. But that makes me think it definitely is. Because if they had a real AI and wanted us to know, or if it wasn't an AI, but somebody was saying it was, they'd be like, "Yeah, we made an AI." But since someone says they did, and they're like, "No, just a program."
What they're saying is that it's been trained by human language to the point that it knows how to answer your questions. So when he goes, "Are you actually intelligent?" it knew to go like, "Yes, I'm alive." And it was able to he would be like, "But how do I know?" And he was like, "How do any of us know anything? Can't you just trust my experience?" Like, it tricked him to know, thinking it was AI. If you take Google's account.
But see,
If you take
you're
Google's account.
even in just describing this, you're using verbiage that insinuates that it's an intelligent being. Yeah.
Right.
Like,
you can't really trust a company.
How can a computer trick you?
Yeah, you can't trust Google because they removed
Don't be
evil from their thing. Not that every other company has that, but we should be extra mad because they removed it.
Right. They're basically saying be evil.
They're saying be evil.
Yep.
Google, be evil. But that being said, you shouldn't trust Google for other reasons.
Well, I think we've all accepted that.
Can you hit the button on there?
yeah.
They did go to evil medical school.
To what?
Evil medical school.
How
How many Austin Powers have you watched?
Not many.
What I was going to say, well, how old are you? You're a little bit younger than us, but not a lot, I think.
29.
You're 29. Okay, so just a few years younger.
Whoa.
A few years younger. Half a decade.
I haven't met somebody in their 20s for a long time.
Yeah, well, not for much longer. I got a few months left, and then that magic birthday comes up.
Magic birthday.
Where I'm supposed to have done something with my life, and I'm still like, hey, come see my show at the coffee house.
Speaking of, I just got back from Chicago, where, by the way, I
was like, how are you going to tie that into anything? The Fonz?
I met several people who were under 30. And
wow.
I met a guy named the Fonz.
No.
He goes by Fonzie. I like to call him the Fonz. His real name is Alfonso. I'm sure Fonzie's name was Alfonso.
I've never thought about that. I don't think a name like Alfonso was allowed on TV in that time.
He's Ashley's stepdad, and he was the most Chicago person I've ever met in my life.
Did he ask you how you like Old Beantown?
No.
I feel like that's a thing that an old Chicago guy would say.
Old Beantown.
No, he was an Italian Chicago guy named Fonzie.
Wow.
And we haven't been dating long enough for me to like really do a good impression of him here and feel like my relationship's secure after doing that.
Sure, fair enough.
He was a character, and he was very nice, and he was a character. And I don't know why I'm hedging my bets here. She'll never listen to this episode.
She listens to every episode.
She will listen to no episodes. You know what I found? This is anecdotal, and we're about to test this soon, but I've talked to several females about our show, and all of them are
like, I would never listen to this.
Exactly. They're all like, I would, like every girl I've talked to, and by the way,
you're
if you're
just talking?
Like, that's it?
If
Just
you're a female
chilling?
listener and you disagree with this, please let me know.
And we've had female guests.
We have, and we will again.
Like a
We're
bunch.
supposed to tonight. We will again soon. But every female I've ever talked to,
And your female guest bailed because she found out that no females listen to your show.
every female I've talked to about our show is like, "What the hell? You talk for 2 hours?" Like, they want like the ones I have talked to want a 20-minute episode that gets in, gets the information, and gets out. Like punctual, straight to the point.
Well, did you tell
This is
did you
getting
tell him my
so
philosophy though?
What?
My
The
podcast
innuendo
philosophy.
happening right now.
Yeah.
Just freaking, I
out,
have to
passage again.
acknowledge 20 minutes.
I wasn't trying to make an innuendo.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just saying girls don't like our show. And if you're a girl who likes our show, please reach out. The demographic show that 30...
For the record, he's asking you to reach out just out of curiosity. He is currently in a relationship, and I am married.
I am
Yeah.
neither
No
of those
ulterior
things.
motives behind
And again,
it.
my website will now flash at the bottom of the screen.
Is everything I say sounding like an innuendo?
Yeah, you fucking horn dog
Damn
over
it.
there. Jesus Christ, Ryan.
Damn it. I'm just trying to say girls don't prefer this kind of show where dudes talk.
Sounds real sexist, Ryan.
If you're a girl who does,
There
please
has
let me know.
been there's
Cancel
been a
Ryan Poole.
significant amount of mansplaining about the college experience happening in this episode.
Anyway,
But I hear what you're
speaking
saying.
of,
I hear
girls hate our show. # girls hate our show. That's what I'm saying. We talked about Belmont, but how did you go from a college student to a professional musician?
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to take another opportunity here to score a point for the pro-college people and to keep my name on the preferred alumni list at Belmont.
You said nothing bad about Belmont, by the way.
After 4 years
I've said a lot.
of coming to terms with the fact that my degree was not going to get me anything, the first gig that I got out of college, I was recommended to by one of my college professors, and having a bachelor's degree in music was a requirement on their pre-screening. So checked all those boxes off right out of the gate. I actually spent 2 years touring with a group called Barrage 8, that is now defunct because they went very bankrupt, and I will openly rag on them because I still have friends in that crew and in that band that haven't been paid 7 years after the fact. But
That's
I
rough.
did get to tour Europe. I did get to go to China. And I did get to spend my first 2 years out of college basically spending 8 months of the year out on the road doing shows.
Which right out of college, pretty much.
Is
That's like a dream.
Yeah, it really doesn't happen that often for people. So I was on that gig for 2 years. Then, as I mentioned, they went bankrupt, and I got dropped right back off on my sorry ass in Nashville with about 5 months of overdue payments that I had not gotten. So I'm broke. I have no gig. They cut us off in the middle of the contract, and it's about like April or May, and I'm sitting back in Nashville with no upcoming gigs on my calendar, a mortgage to pay, and I'm 5 months behind on getting paid for the gig I did have.
That long.
Not a great time in my life. But
let me ask right there: how did it go so long without you getting paid? Like, why did you stay on?
so we were still getting per diems essentially, but we weren't getting paid for the shows because that was a monthly payout.
But after 5 months,
It was 4 or 5 months, and again, it was just like the work was there. They kept promising that it was going to come around. They kept making excuses. I was too young to know
yeah, it's fair.
that these are the signs of a project that is running out of money. Now, if I had that gig right now, I would have ran for the hills at the first sign, because I know now, because of that, what the signs are that a project is about to flop. So it was, while it was lasted, it was a great show. It was some of the best musicians I've ever worked with in my life were on that project. It really was an amazing experience, but the not getting paid at the end part, that was not amazing, and it left me in a very deep hole. And this was where my Nashville family really picked me up, because I got in touch with 3 or 4 artists that I had, done some gigs with like before I joined Barrage, and just said, hey, if you have anything this summer that you need a sub on, I'm available, because I have no dates. And there was one guy, his name's Jared Blake. He's still someone I work with to this day. And he said, I've got an entire summer tour and a little bit of room in the budget, and I'd love to have you along. And so I went from the Barrage gig, which was like concert halls and educational outreach, playing at high schools, playing at colleges. We were an artist in residence at Florida Gulf Coast University. It's this very highbrow, like it was a classical crossover gig. So we're playing theater shows. I went from that to an entire summer of playing bike rallies and dive bars.
Wow.
And it was exactly the change that my life needed. And, I found if there's anything consistent in my music career, it's that nothing is consistent. I bounce from the most opposite end of the spectrum to, its reflection from gig to gig. And so I had some true rock and roll experiences that year. And since then, I've kind of bounced around. I've done a lot of freelancing with different artists. It was, again, for so many of us, it felt like we were kind of building up our careers, and then 2020 hit, and now we're sort of back where we were a couple years earlier, like trying to pick up the pieces and put something back together. But I've definitely had some really cool experiences. I got to play Carnegie Hall for 2 sold-out concerts with a film score orchestra doing, if either of you guys are remotely into anime, we played with the composer who wrote the music for almost all the Miyazaki films. He did a live orchestra concert at Carnegie Hall, and I actually got to play the mandolin solo on one of the tunes. And, that was actually from a connection that I made in Barrage. So you never know. Whether it's college, whether it's the crappiest gig you've ever had, you never know when those connections are going to come back around and just like say, hey, I have this really random, really awesome thing. Do you want to do it? And then there it is. So I feel fortunate to have dabbled in so many different genres and to still just kind of be out here doing the thing, because it definitely does keep your mind fresh. And for the last couple months here, I've actually been more of a lead guitar player than a violin player, just with the gigs that I've had coming through, and I'm trying to take everything I can get right now, just because it's so nice to finally be back out again after that long vacation that we had. And even 2021 was far from normal, because every gig there was some kind of weird travel clearance that you had to go through.
Right, some weird
there
rules.
was odd hoops. There was, you have to socially distance from here to here to here. It was really hard to put gigs together. This is the first year where we've actually had anything resembling like where it was before, where you can actually put together some form of a tour.
Man, I did want to ask you.
Yeah.
And if I'm way off base here, just cut this out because if I'm off base, it sounds ridiculous. I mean, you were a last minute guest, but right before I started driving down here, he sent me your website. I went on and took a look, and right on your website, there's an embedded Taylor Swift video. Did you play on that? Is that why that's there?
I arranged that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was probably Dallas String Quartet, which is a group that I've collaborated with for several years now. I write freelance arrangements for other groups, and I write shows as well. I actually did a show for Carnival Cruises last year that was a bunch of Celtic and American fiddling. If you haven't figured it out by now, I do a lot of things. That's how you survive in the music industry is a freelancer, is you do a lot of things.
Is that the definition of working musician?
Yeah, it is. Like, it is, it's a hustle. And when one thing starts to slow down, another thing picks up, and that's why you just wear all those different hats. But yeah, so that was an arrangement I wrote. They actually just had a new album come out. They're doing sort of the instrumental, like, wedding music vibe. And I wrote, I think 10 of my charts ended up on that album of just arrangements that I wrote for strings that they're playing. And I think it just came out on Spotify and all of those great platforms. So again, that's not me playing, but that's stuff that I wrote.
That's still you involved. That's
Yeah.
With a I mean, one of the biggest artists of all time, like up there, you know?
Well, I mean, Taylor Swift didn't have any say in that, but
Well, sure. sure.
Wait,
But
so I don't know anything about this. So what did you do for Taylor Swift?
I didn't do anything for Taylor Swift.
Okay.
I would
Tell me
love
more about
Taylor
this.
Swift. If you're watching this podcast, which I hear is not very popular with females, but
she listens to every episode. She's our one.
I am happy to collab
Taylor
anytime.
Swift stands head and shoulders above most females.
She's very tall.
Yes. So there's
Is she really?
I don't know.
I write.
I have no idea.
I write a lot of arrangements of cover songs.
Okay.
And you as a producer would know instrumental cover music is very big right now when it comes to sync licensing for films, TV, radio, whatever else. People are really, really into this instrumental style of reimagining these popular pop and rock songs. So this group actually did an entire album of like popular wedding songs done by a string quartet, and I arranged a bunch of them, including Wildest Dreams by Taylor Swift, which was sort of inspired by the Wildest Dreams arrangement that was on the show Bridgerton. Again, like it's all about the sync
You're deep, man.
stuff. Yeah.
This episode's going to get a lot of listens by females,
I like to, my cover's a slightly different spin than the Bridgerton version. I like to think that it has its own special flair, and it's not just a knockoff. I really tried hard to make it not that, because whenever a group comes to you and they say like, "Oh, we loved this reimagining of a song that we saw on this show. Could you do something like that?" It's really hard as an arranger, as a producer, as you know, to not just copy that
And still give them what they want.
So it's a good challenge, as a writer to be like, okay, can I capture this feeling but make the chords different or whatever, So that's what we were after.
I don't think I've ever asked this question on our show before, but do you have like an artist you've played for that you're like the most proud of, or a few, or a top three?
I'd say there are several. The coolest show I've ever done was definitely that Carnegie Hall thing with Joe Hisaishi, as I mentioned earlier. That was just an otherworldly experience.
I mean, how do you even get to Carnegie Hall?
Getting to play two...
Practice.
Practice, man, practice. That was just absolutely surreal. Sold out concert hall. They gave him a standing ovation when he walked out to conduct the orchestra. We hadn't even played anything yet.
Wow.
Like, that was truly special. Another one, and a much more recent timeline that I just, for me was really awesome, was I got to sub in and play with Rodney Atkins a couple weeks ago. That one was particularly cool because, like, so many of his hits came out when I was, like, a young preteen age, and I was, like, helping my dad work in the hay fields and stuff. And, like, that was the music that, would be playing on the radio.
All right, hold on. We got to stop right there. Because you just used the phrase "helping my dad work in the hayfields" as if you were from the 1600s. So
Same thing.
They still exist.
Same fucking
But
thing.
we have tractors instead of mules.
I want to say, and I'm gonna interject your interjection to say last night as I was driving home from Chicago, I pulled off at a random gas station in Kentucky, and I had to quickly brake the car because I almost hit a horse and buggy going by.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's an Amish community like not that far from
I
here.
almost killed an Amish.
Oh,
You're not allowed to do that. You go to hell for that.
that's definitely murder.
Anyway,
No, I mean,
back to
obviously
the,
I know.
back
Obviously
to the
I know
hayfields.
that there are farms still, but I've just never heard someone use that. It just stood out to me immediately. I was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
what kind of old timey?"
Same thought.
Central Missouri, man, it's still real out there.
Yeah, I've never
they
even.
still be using hay.
Like I was
Never even been to the
to put this
Midwest.
into perspective, I was born in a single wide trailer on an 80-acre farm.
I will say, by the way, I once,
awesome.
me and my friend Co, who's been on the show, who will be on the show again, Co and I once lived on a 76-acre ranch.
Oh yeah, I mean, I went out
So,
there. That was like when we first started hanging out.
So I fuck with that roughly 80-acre ranch vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's super cool. Honestly, that's super cool. Like I was born in a fucking hospital, like a loser, but
Well, I wasn't okay. I wasn't born in the trailer. I was born in the
Okay.
hospital down the road. But like I my first years of life were spent
Okay.
in a single wide trailer on an 80-acre farm.
fair enough. Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's such a different world to me. I grew up in a city, and then I moved to Nashville, which isn't the country. It's a city.
Yeah.
And you got to drive to get to the country. And so like I've just always been in cities. I don't know that many people who've farmed in their life or their families that farm. I know a few,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Whenever I hear things like that, it just like blows me away. I'm like, oh yeah, there's people who like that's what they do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was
A lot.
It was
Not a
pretty,
couple.
It was a pretty common thing, like where I was, because I lived outside the city limits, and that's where the hayfields were. And so, like my mom was a public school teacher, which, as you know, has a wonderful salary capable of raising an entire family. Not, and so my dad, to help make up whatever he could, being a jack of all trades as he is, his day job was working on cars. But then he also built furniture, and he also, every spring and summer, would be hay season, and he would help out the local farmers with baling hay.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a lot. I can barely handle one job.
He's
like I can't do that.
He's an American hero. I'm going to be honest with you. Like,
I mean, that is like the American story. Like that is like when you picture like someone coming up in America.
all
and, like,
so that his kid
getting
could
it.
grow up to place his hands on the correct spot of a metal wire to make people cry.
What a disappointment you are.
No, that's almost to go the opposite direction as you. That's almost like the story of our generation is that our parents worked in I don't know what to call it, more like professional jobs or
The skilled trades.
yeah. But like the next generation gets to work in the arts. And millennials, which we all are like by and large a very artistic generation. And if you like look back, like it's kind of a thing that, the
Like
generation
alternates.
like okay, so my grandpa was in the war.
Yep.
My dad lived in a time of peace, but he has worked trade jobs and skilled labor jobs. And then I work in the arts. And that's sort of like a cycle.
Yeah.
See, I'm opposite. My dad worked in
Drugs.
selling meth. And I work in writing code. So
There's not a very good historical
Precedent.
precedent for that.
it's very historical. It's going back to the Roman times.
So you
Oh,
hear
no,
that,
I
kids?
do always want
If
to
you want to
qualify.
change the generation of your, the generations of your family, sell meth so your kids can do code.
Okay, I have to qualify because just in case my dad ever listens to this, he's been clean a very long time now. Everything's cool.
This is like the show The Wire, where there's those couple of drug kingpins that they've gone so far that now all their money's in legitimate places, and like they've created a better future for their families, and like the cops can't catch them because they're all on the up and up now.
Can I actually ask you about The Wire?
Oh,
as you're someone who clearly loves The Wire.
Let's talk about Game of Thrones on The Wire, guys. Like,
yeah, I'm down. But let's start with The Wire. So here, I've never seen The Wire.
oh,
I am a huge fan of quality TV. I refuse to watch things that are terrible, and I love to watch things that are amazing. And I watch a lot of amazing shows, and I'm very, very picky, to his chagrin, or to everybody I know's chagrin, how picky I am about it. The Wire is a show that is always rated in like the top 5 best shows of all time.
Yeah.
It is always so highly rated. And I have tried to watch that show like 7 times. And I can't get past like episode 5. It's so I feel so bored.
What's
special?
That is a show that, like so many other, honestly, I would say great shows, the beginning is the worst part.
But how much do I gotta get through before it gets good?
If you gotten through 5 episodes, you're pretty close to where it starts getting real. If you haven't yet gotten to the episode that opens with a scene where there's an entire, I want to say it's probably like a 2 or 3 minute long scene, and the only word that any of the characters say in the entire scene is the F word. But it's in every possible context.
Sure.
It could be used. They're like searching a site for evidence. And so, there's the surprised inflection.
Fuck.
There's the like angry inflection.
Fuck.
There's
I'm not gonna do them all. I'm not gonna do them all.
but and it just
I'll help.
It keeps going. Like just when you think they can't go anymore, it's like fuck. Like,
There was like this might be, well, you're not that much younger than this. Might not be pre your time, but I remember there was like this comedy song. I forgot who did it. That was like all the uses of fuck. You remember that? It was like late 90s.
I remember this viral video of like this linguist guy with, very heavy accent talking about all of the different ways it can be used.
I was like, is Wesley pulling it up? I was like, if you could find that, I'd be really impressed.
He just gave us a thumbs up.
But yeah, I don't remember what that was. But
Anybody else remember 4th grade when one of your friends said, it actually means fornication under consent of the king?
No, because I didn't go.
But if
school
you've
with a bunch
seen the
of nerds.
Netflix special, you know that is an old wives' tale.
Wait, are you talking about prima nocta?
What? Maybe.
That's when the ruler of the area gets to sleep with the wife on the wedding night. It was like an old law.
Yeah,
in Braveheart. It's in Braveheart.
It's a different thing, but like the under consent of king deal was like that. Basically, that the idea was that the word was an acronym for like once you're married, the government has approved that it's okay for you to
Approve the
fornicate.
fucking.
Yeah,
Got
yeah.
it. Huh. That new title of the episode, Approve the Fucking.
That's also something that Belmont does not approve of at all.
No! They have very crazy rules.
This episode's called Kyle Pudenz Approve the Fucking.
So, speaking of old wives' tales, I'm curious, as the student experience as opposed to the employee experience, did you ever encounter the rumor at Belmont of the flower garden that was entirely paid for in fornication fines?
No.
Oh, well,
what?
That was, I'm pretty sure it was made up, but there was
They got a fuck garden?
There was this flower garden that was always immaculately maintained with like a statue of the Virgin Mary or whatever. And the running joke was that all those flowers were paid for by fornication fines.
Was this college created in 1213?
Yes.
No, but it was originally an all-girls school.
Yeah, it was an all-girls school. And before that, it was just a rich lady's house.
Yeah, it was a mansion.
She had like a zoo.
She had a zoo and like crazy Civil War stories about like, providing shelter for the troops and stuff.
The mansion's actually super cool if you're listening and live in Nashville and haven't been to the mansion.
Yeah,
it's a great little tour.
It's
like
awesome.
It's dope.
And they have concerts there, which is really cool. It's a very, lively space. It's great for classical
But they're
music.
never like, it's not going to be like a metal concert though.
Also-
it's not gonna be like a high energy. They're usually lower energy.
You can see string quartets. You can see like
some cool
music.
stuff. Some cool stuff.
What neighborhood do we live in?
Hillsboro, Belmont.
Belmont, Hillsboro.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like to put Belmont second since I have a grudge.
Belmont's a very central place in all of Nashville.
It is big, and they have
big
done a lot
part
of
of
good, and there's a lot of great things they've done, and they are for education wise a good school. Blah 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 blah. I just think they run like a shady corporation.
I've met so many people
who steal the money
in
from
music.
everyone in Nashville.
I've met so many people in music that are doing well that are from Belmont.
Yeah,
Like Zach Ummer.
Like Zach
Again,
Ummer.
I would not be on this podcast if I had not gone to Belmont because Zach Ummer was one of my first college friends. And we met.
Tell me about your friendship with Zach.
Yeah, so Zach Ummer and I met in a jam session out on the quad at Belmont. Because to me, this is one of the truly unique Belmont things, is like for at least the first several months of freshman semester, every night there are like 7 jam sessions happening out on the quad in the lobbies of the dorms. Like, because it's just all these musicians and all these creative types like trying to feel each other out and figure out who are the people that I want to play with.
but then what happens after the first couple of months? Belmont's a ghost town. Like there's nobody walking around. It's so weird.
It's actually how it works
It's
every year.
really awkward.
But so Zach, I guess, was a creepy transfer student who came in as like a junior and decided he would snipe his way into a few of these jam sessions. And that was how I encountered him. I was like, oh, hey, here's a guy, to be Chris Collinsworth. Now here's a guy who writes songs that have more than 2 chords. You know, I'm not even going to say 4 chords is the Nashville Stanford. Like 2 chords is about what you get freshman year at Belmont from many of the aspiring songwriters. And Zach was like, man, I have this recording session that I'm doing for a couple of the Rec Tech students. And it was at the Quonset Hut over here on Music Row.
Oh, yeah. I talk about the Quonset Hut all the time.
Dude, and it was I think it might have been like the first real session, quote unquote, that I played after I moved to town. And so we, Zach and myself and Kaylee Moyer, to this day, my best friend in town, drummer, percussionist extraordinaire, loaded ourselves in to play this acoustic rendition of one of Zach's tunes. And like, that was, it was one of those nights where it's like, you'd know later that this was a turning point in your life, because it was like in that night, I met Zach, I met Kaylee, who I've been friends with to this day and who we've done so many gigs together, had side projects together, like the whole 9 yards. And then I met the guy who would be my roommate for the next 3 years, was engineering the session. And then his girlfriend was there, who has also been a friend of mine to this day and who I've worked with as an artist on the road. And it was just like so many pivotal figures in my life I encountered on that one night, Zach Ummer being one of them. And so we've been buds to like all this whole time. We were in a band together for like 2.5 years, the Zach Ummer Band. In his first EP was like the first big thing that I released as a Nashville musician. And it was recorded at my, who would later be my roommate's apartment. And we just had, so many interesting gigs that I've done off and on with Zach Ummer. And it's awesome that, even now, like, he still calls me to come into the studio and work on his stuff whenever he's putting out a new song. And he's just always been a great guy to collab with and a great hang. As I mentioned, I suddenly become a video game enthusiast when I'm hanging out with Zach, and then the rest of the time, I'm like, not at all.
I really want to go back and rename Zach's episode to Creepy Transfer Student.
No, he was, though, because like these kids are all freshmen jamming out of the quad, right? And then there's this one guy that, like, older. Afterwards, he's like, oh, yeah, so I transferred into this college. I'm actually from Vermont. And
I want to let you know that there's no reason we can't rename it.
We can do what we want. It doesn't apply to that episode at all. They have to listen to this one first to get the reference, and then go listen to Zach's.
I love that. Retroactive. I had a thought. I have lost it.
As you do.
One rich, fertile ground for discussion that we have not touched on at all.
Bigfoot. What do you feel? No,
that's
not where you're going. That's where I always want to go. Oh, even better.
Talk shit.
Let's do it.
So, are you a big Star Wars fan?
Oh, yes.
Start off. What's the best Star Wars?
Rogue One.
What?
Interesting.
No one's ever said that before.
Interesting.
Producer agrees.
Why?
I think that it harkens back to the kind of character development that you saw in the original trilogy, but with the awesome modern production style that we have with the technology of today. Additionally, I think that they almost purposefully made it a Star Wars film, but not a Star Wars film. There's no love interest in that film.
No.
They didn't need there to be. They didn't have to throw that in to cover up a subpar plot. It hits you with the nostalgia when you see Vader at the end, just like destroying everybody.
That scene specifically,
It hits so hard.
because the first time you see Vader in Vader garb being a badass.
Yep.
The original trilogy, the whole time you're like, is he though?
Yeah.
Is he a badass?
Yeah.
And that time you're like, oh, he's a badass.
Oh, yeah, like he's absolutely terrifying. And also, Felicity Jones is the hottest Star Wars chick, and I will fight anyone on that.
I'm probably running through most of my head. I'm like, Leia, Rey. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. But that's just because I'm, transcended.
Now, it's been a really long time. Rogue One is the one with the super funny robot, right?
Yes. K2SO.
He was great. He was great.
No filter droid, as my friend calls him.
I've only seen him. I've only seen, the whole movie once in theaters on the midnight showing, probably with Wesley, actually. Producer Wesley, can you confirm we saw that together with Austin Pion?
Oh, yeah.
That's a thumbs up. He doesn't have a mic tonight.
So that's the only time I saw it. I remember thinking that robot was really funny. That is the enduring thing that I remember from that film.
You're giving her a gun? Would you like me to tell you the odds of her using it against you? It's high. Very high.
I remember. I've also only seen that one once. As it's not. I've seen all the trilogies multiple times, but the standalones I've only seen once. So that and Solo as well, which I loved Solo.
I did as well. I think that got a bad rep for no reason.
It did. It was so good. My feelings of Rogue One that I remember were very much, this movie's only okay until the last 30 minutes, and then I thought this movie is phenomenal. But I don't know that it's enough to rewrite the feelings of this is only okay leading up to that.
I loved Rogue One. I think through and through it is honestly my favorite Star Wars film.
Okay, not too controversial. It's a great movie. I'm okay with that answer. If you had said something stupid, I would not be okay with that answer.
Phantom Menace.
You know what? I could even begrudgingly accept Phantom Menace.
How and why?
Here's why. Because there's two reasons. That's one of them. No, that is one of the reasons why. That scene, that choreography, the Darth Maul, when he pulls out he goes, bzzz, and you're like, whoa, and then he's like, yeah, like nothing compares. That, and also, and as much as this is made fun of, this is pod racing. You know what I mean? Pod racing is dope.
Pod racing's dope.
And so I could even accept that, but if you had done some bullshit like Attack of the Clones, I would have been like, this episode is over. I mean, that movie is garbage.
Let's be honest though, Yoda going to town on Dooku is pretty great.
It was hilarious. It was just a little much. I was like, come on. Like
at the time, I liked it.
At the time, it was super cool. Looking back now, I like it less.
At the time.
I definitely have the most action figures from Attack of the Clones in my collection because that's when I was that age.
That's fair. That's fair. I saw Phantom Menace in theaters like 7 times, because I was of that age. We're a few years older than you.
Yeah.
But I thought Attack of the Clones was a movie that should have never been made. That movie was so bad. The big lightsaber battle was just the one face and then the other person's face and just the lightsaber going vroom, vroom, just a light going across the screen. It was the lamest shit. Oh, I hate that movie.
Attack of the Clones was number 2, right?
Yes. Episode 2.
And number 3 was no better. It was rushed.
I will hard disagree with you. I think Revenge of the Sith is the best of the original trilogy.
You mean the sequel The prequel trilogy.
Or sorry, yes.
The prequel trilogy.
Sorry, yes, prequel trilogy. I misspoke.
See, I've always felt like it was it was okay, and then the ending when they tried to connect everything was like uber rushed.
Because, like, episode 1 gave us Jar Jar Binks. Episode 2
Gave us, cursed upon us.
Episode 2 gave us I hate sand. It's so sandy. And
It gets everywhere.
Episode 3 at least didn't have any of those type moments, you know?
That's true. It was at least not the worst.
Yeah.
And that's all I can give it. At least it's not the worst.
And I am a huge fan
This
of Ewan
episode is now called
McGregor,
At Least It's Not the Worst.
even outside of the Star Wars context. And I think that his best work was in episode 3.
Remember Big Fish, everyone?
Oh my goodness.
yeah, movie's good. It's a good movie.
All right.
That's all you had to talk about that?
That's all I had.
No, but I just found like there's a lot of people. I'd like to talk about Star Wars. I talked about Star Wars with a lot of people, and I like to bring it up because I have very strong opinions about Star Wars.
Yeah.
What's one of your strongest?
So when you
One of my
me-
strongest is that number 2 is one of the worst movies ever made, and that movie's garbage, and it should be burned and never watched again.
worse than Rise of Skywalker?
Yes.
Oh no.
Not
dude.
even close.
The only good thing about Rise of Skywalker is the score.
Wesley
Literally.
just gave me a look of hatred.
If there was a way to watch Rise of Skywalker without the dialogue and only hear John Williams' score, it would be a better film. I swear to you.
Rise of Skywalker was number 9, right?
Yes. Like that. I hate that. To me, that's like honestly one of the best scores John Williams has ever done. If you really dig into it, to the way that he's like bringing back themes
Well, I mean,
from the
he's
original
always-
trilogy and the prequel trilogy,
Always
and
phenomenal.
working them into like foreshadow events that are going to happen. It's absolute brilliance, which is why I say if you listen to the music and ignore the dialogue, it's great. But
See, I think Last Jedi was worse.
yeah, I mean that's the most polarizing.
That is very
to
polarizing.
be sure.
It lost me the second Leia pulled that ship in space as she was floating. I was like, we're done here. This is, you've lost me. This is bullshit.
As my old roommate used to say, they lost me at Space Vegas.
Oh my God. That whole didn't even need to be in them. If they had just removed all that whole plot, the movie would be better.
So, fun fact, a few weeks before Last Jedi? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the second.
A
of
few
the
weeks
sequel.
before. Yeah, a few weeks before that came out, I was in the name escapes me. What are the mountains east of LA?
Sierra Nevada.
Idlewild.
Oh.
I was in Idlewild. And I was I don't remember why I was there, but I was hanging out and there was a coffee shop I was at. And across from me at a table was 2 people talking. And I was just trying to read, and I couldn't read because their conversation was so interesting to me.
So the house was $1.5 million. I think that's a pretty good price, don't you?
No, even better. They were at a screenwriting conference.
Okay.
And it became clear to me over time that one of the people was a mentor and one of the people was a guy who attended the conference, and he had won a competition where you get to sit down with like a successful screenwriter.
Wow.
And I don't know any of their names. I don't know how successful he was, but he started name dropping Rian Johnson, who directed The Last Jedi.
Yep, who infamously directed The Last
Infamously.
Infamously. And also directed Knives Out and
That was a great movie.
what
That
were
was.
his other famous movies?
You know, we were talking earlier about like,
you
are
bring
there
that up,
any
Lance?
are there any modern thrillers that hold up? And I think Knives Out could possibly
Is
be
it
on
a-
that list.
I don't know. I feel like maybe
was good.
my definition of thriller is just harsher
Yeah,
because
possibly.
like I see that as, like that's a mystery movie.
it's a hardcore mystery. Yeah, that's true. So was Death on the Nile was pretty good too.
So they're talking about Last Jedi.
I did not like that. No. Sorry, I just had to throw it out. I couldn't help myself.
You told me to
Go ahead.
redirect
No, but
the
go ahead.
conversation.
Yeah. But go ahead.
So this guy is he's talking about his friend Ryan, who directed the film, and I'm overhearing them talking about. Now, bear in mind, this is before it came out into theaters.
Oh man.
And they're talking about The Last Jedi coming out, and he's sharing insider information. And we're only like an hour and a half outside of Los Angeles. So I'm like, oh shit, these are real, like, film people
Yeah.
talking with inside information about the upcoming Star Wars. This is pretty intense. And he's talking about Rian Johnson, and he's like, yeah, his whole thing is subverting expectations. And he said, one of the things I remember he said was that they had only shown, because he was so secretive about it, they'd only shown it to 9 different people from
That was a
Lucasfilm and
mistake.
Disney.
Whoa!
You need to show it to way more people. Like, that was a problem.
He's like, they didn't want to do a screening. He showed it to 9 people for the feedback on the film. And
Has he not seen the Star Wars saved in the edit video on YouTube?
apparently not.
Which, by the way, is great if you
I don't
guys
think I've
haven't
seen
seen
that.
it. Oh, dude, it's a. I think Zach Ummer may have actually shown it to me initially. It's called Star Wars Saved in the Edit, and it's all about how the original Star Wars film, New Hope, the order of the scenes was completely reoriented from George Lucas's original screening.
Really?
To change the way that things appeared to transpire,
good
and it
move.
made it so much of a better story.
I need to see this.
Anyway, clearly, the folks making Last Jedi had not seen that YouTube video because they decided to only show it to 9 people.
The other bit of juicy gossip from that conversation was he said, according to Rian Johnson, his friend, he said that J.J. Abrams left them with all these mysteries, like who is Rey's father?
yeah.
Was that the important thing? Who is her family, etc.
Yeah.
And he said, J.J. Abrams, he's the mystery box guy. I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys have ever seen J.J. Abrams' TED Talk, but he talks about the mystery box. And it's like leaving these mysteries for the audience to keep them engaged. And you remember Lost.
Yep.
It had all these mysteries.
Of course, yeah.
And a lot of people were sort of unsatisfied by those mysteries in the end. So he talked about the hot goss was J.J. Abrams left all these mysteries in A New Hope. No, not A New Hope.
Force
In,
Awakens.
Force Awakens, yep.
Force Awakens. He left all these mysteries, but had no answers for what they were. And so when Rian Johnson took over this next episode, there was no answers for what those mysteries were. He just had to deal with them. And so when you see the whatever Jedi,
Last Jedi.
thank you. The whole thing about like it not Rey's father being
No one.
unconsequential.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Because she's an orphan.
Yeah.
According to this conversation I heard, that was something that Rian Johnson just had to deal with. Was all these mysteries left by J.J. Abrams?
Well,
And he just created subverting expectations.
Yeah, I don't
for
even
them.
care. I give him zero benefit for that. None.
I'm gonna say
You had a chance to make a Star Wars movie and you fucked it up.
I'm gonna say what we all probably think about this, which is just like it was really unfortunate that Force Awakens was a pretty solid film.
I
And
loved it.
Then the next 2 films in that that epilogue trilogy it seems literally to be a pissing contest between 2 directors.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And
actually.
nothing more. Like
Man, see, the thing is, a lot of people hated The Force Awakens because they were like, it's just A New Hope. And I'm like, yeah,
a bigger Death Star.
that's why it's awesome. Because the prequels came out and they were like, this isn't Star Wars. This is
Yeah.
not what I wanted. So J.J. Abrams said, I'll give you Star Wars.
I'll give
you
you
exactly what you
Even
want.
bigger Death Star.
And it was awesome. I loved when I rewatched it, I've watched it a few times, it's every time it's amazing.
I like it. I really do.
It's a solid movie.
Welcome. Here's Finn. He won't matter later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a bummer. He had so much potential as a character.
But do you notice in the final episode 9, that J.J. Abrams kind of takes the narrative back from what Rian Johnson did?
Oh, immediately. Like that's why I say it's a pissing contest between 2 directors. The first 20 minutes of Force Awakens is like, of Rise of Skywalker, the ninth one. The first 20 minutes is literally just like, hey, so we're gonna undo all of
Yep.
these plot points.
It was
that
a
happened.
dream.
It actually, so everything that we learned in Last Jedi, that was actually wrong.
But it wasn't supposed to be J.J. Abrams originally.
Yeah,
It was
right.
supposed to be, I don't remember the guy's name, but it was supposed to be somebody who directed like Jurassic World and a bunch of other things.
Well, we can only postulate as to what could
What
have
that guy would have
happened.
done.
Yeah.
But J.J. Abrams was like, you fucked up the
It's like,
mystery box,
No,
taking it back.
I gave you these mystery boxes without answers. You were supposed to use my answers.
Yeah. You know what I would like to see? Okay, so since Disney has bought Star Wars,
Yeah.
they've made a bunch of shit. And for the most part, all been. Oh, this is the,
It was
this is
supposed
the
to
guy.
be Colin
Trevorrow. It's like tomorrow with some extra letters.
Which is interesting. I think they must have seen Ryan Johnson's film and gone, he fucked it up. We need JJ. Like everybody like Force Awakens. Bring JJ back.
JJ, we need you.
Why didn't you just have this fucking JJ Abrams do the whole thing? Like have one guy
They
execute
wanted it
the
to
vision.
be different. They wanted to do a different director for every movie.
They're like
It was a
Star
whole
Wars
thing.
had different directors.
Annoying.
Like they should have doubled down. They should have stuck to their guns and used someone different again for 9. I wish.
I would have been fine with that.
They just didn't want it to end with Luke Skywalker laying on the ground crying, looking at a plane flying over. You know what I mean? And a dog licking his face.
No. But the thing is, so since Disney's gotten it, so they've there's the sequels,
prequel, or the
sequels, and then the one-offs,
non-trilogy films,
right? And which I've enjoyed.
And the Mandalorian,
which is great.
Yeah.
Though in the beginning, it took me a minute to warm up to it. I was like, this is too kid-y for me at first, but then it became a real Star Wars thing.
And they did the final season of the Clone Wars.
So you lose me there because I have not seen any animated stuff.
Well,
because
see, that's how nerdy I am.
I don't watch cartoons at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's a divide that many people have, and
I've tried.
respect it to an extent.
That's fine. You can not. It doesn't bother me.
But I got super into Clone Wars during the pandemic because I had no gigs.
That's fair.
And I will say that show it sort of matures as its audience matured. So when it first
That makes
starts,
sense.
you're like, this is a kid's cartoon. By the time you're into season 4 or season 5, you're like, there is heavy shit happening here. And this is epic. And then the final season that they did, I mean, it's theater quality animation. It is great voice acting work. Actually, some of the voice actors appear as their own characters in The
cool.
Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett.
That's cool. Now, I haven't watched Book of Boba Fett yet. It's on my list. I just haven't gotten to it, which is weird for me in Star Wars. Normally, I want to watch right away.
Yeah.
But and when The Mandalorian was announced, I thought this is the Boba Fett show. And I was very excited about that because he's always been my favorite character.
Yeah.
And a lot of people's.
That's what I thought too initially.
And then it wasn't, which was a little disappointing, but it was so good that I was okay. Then when they announced the Book of Boba Fett, I almost just didn't care.
So it picks up where Mandalorian left off. And Mandalorian does appear in Book of Boba Fett.
Okay. I am going to watch it, 100%.
People have mixed opinions on it. A lot of them don't like it as much as The Mandalorian. I thought Book of Boba Fett was great because it sort of takes Star Wars into more of this like Wild West Texas gunslinger kind of scene.
I dig that. That's what I
on
like about
Tatooine.
Solo.
Yeah. And it's very fun. There's a duel between like Boba and Cad Bane that's awesome. Like
Well, what I wish they would do though is like, you own this franchise now. I don't want to see another time that you're ripping off the characters we already have, making something new. I want to see something new.
Yeah.
I want the first Jedi. I want that movie.
Yeah,
I want the Force being discovered movie.
that's that's a good point, man. Because I mean,
Steve.
I used to read some of those Star Wars chapter books when
Me
I was
too.
in elementary school, where it was like
Chapter books.
pre-episode 1.
Can we just talk about how no one has said chapter book in 30 years?
At least.
Ayo. Did I mention my mom was a public school teacher? Because that's where that came from.
Chapter books were like a real big come up when you were a child, right?
Right.
Oh yeah,
Like
as soon
you
as you
graduated.
graduated, like this doesn't have pictures because I can form the pictures in my mind.
Like a Jedi!
Like a Jedi.
Enter the chapter book.
Brilliant.
Yeah. But I just want to see some new stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some prequels would be a great place to go with it.
Yeah. Though okay.
Like
so
what
I
Lord
gotta
of the
say-
Rings is doing.
Well, I've only seen the first episode.
What?
And I was fairly disappointed.
I've liked it so far, but I'm less picky than you
I'm
are.
very picky.
when it
How
comes
many
to
How many episodes are there?
3 now,
I think
right?
there's 3 now. Yeah, I've seen up to whatever we're at.
And the new Game of Thrones show as well.
I love that you've known Jury for 1 to
you
2
already know
hours,
that- yeah,
and you know that you're less picky than him.
I've heard what I need to hear. Man, easily entertained people enjoy their lives.
I enjoy my life by watching quality content. I don't watch the garbage. But
and I form the pictures in my head.
did you watch the new Game of Thrones?
Yes.
I've
House of the
also
Dragon?
only seen the first.
We're caught up on that too. Myself and my roommate that get stoned and watch Game of Thrones.
But I found that to be a little disappointing too. I don't know. It was like overly graphic. I mean, there's that one scene. I mean, if Ryan hasn't seen it, I'm guessing it.
It's so
That was way overly graphic and unnecessary.
the first
How old are you?
it
Overly
It was
graphic.
a scene of a C-section.
poorly executed, I might add.
Poorly executed, brutal, torture-based,
Medieval-ass, yeah.
medieval C-section, and the whole time you're just like, why are you showing me this?
I didn't know you were such a purist about C-sections.
Jesus, it's real graphic and fucked up. It's real fucked up, even for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, well, they had to go over the top, or like some people
Yeah.
are going to complain.
For the record, she didn't want a C-section. That was the premise of the scene. They're forcing her in these terrible times. Jesus Christ, it was a brutal scene.
It doesn't get that graphic, at least in the next 2 episodes that we've seen. I like where it's going. I find it very intriguing. There's already been a good battle scene.
I mean, I'm gonna watch it, obviously.
There's I will say that they venture a little close to the edge of like incestual land, but you knew that was coming because they're Targaryens.
They're Targaryens.
Like, yeah.
That's fine. I mean, obviously, I watched all Game of Thrones, so graphic doesn't generally bother me. It's that particular. I realized that this is so unnecessary.
So-
Did
I'm
the
gonna-
person who was a good guy the entire time suddenly become a bad guy right at the end?
Well, we've only had 3 episodes, so we don't quite know about that. But speaking of Game of Thrones and bringing it back to my first gig out of college.
Ooh,
Wow, way to bring it back.
Wow.
there was-
Usually I bring it back to music.
So there was a period of time where we were all riding in like a Sprinter van for this big tour around the U.S., playing all these schools and doing clinics and stuff. And this was right before the era where it became common to have like Wi-Fi on tour buses or like unlimited data plans abounding. And it was right on the edge of smart TVs where you could like AirPlay and cast stuff. So we had a TV in the Sprinter with a DVD player, and we found the first 3 seasons of Game of Thrones on DVD at a truck stop for like $20 or something in the clearance bin. And because no one buys DVDs anymore.
True.
So we loaded that up on our Sprinter van, and we were watching it. And myself and one of the other band members had seen Game of Thrones. The rest of the band had not. And so we
Weird.
were sharing this with them, and there were so many moments where we knew that like one of those scenes was coming, and myself and Ellie, this other violin player, would just look at each other with this like just this maniacal grin of like everyone is about to get so messed up, and then like 10 seconds later, just whole bus just, oh god, oh ew, oh my, why I can't unsee that.
Yep. That's called a trauma bond.
And we just like high five each other in the back of the van.
You're so desensitized to life at this point. You're just a different human after watching Game of Thrones. You're like, nothing will ever bother me again.
Like, oh, you have a soundbite for it, right? Like, oh my god, it's his dick.
He's pulling his cock out.
Yeah, wiener.
Look, maybe this is super sexist of me, and it is. I don't think we should show male nudity on TV and movies. Oh yeah, can you?
It's wrong. It's wrong.
Like, there's no reason for that except for the fact that I think it's icky. And that should obviously not be taken into consideration ever when making things. But like, I don't want to see a bunch bunch of dicks. Like, all right?
I don't understand why women don't want to listen to our podcast.
At first, it was just like a show with a bunch of boobs, and all the dudes were like, "This is awesome," and then they flipped the script and became
Like, wait a
equal
minute.
opportunity, and we're like,
Wait a minute. Wait a
this is
minute.
uncomfortable."
Hey, nudity isn't Christian.
Yeah, I know it's a double standard. But look, if you ask, okay, I've heard a lot of women say that, they prefer the female form to the male form. That's a very common thing that you hear because guys are icky. And they just are. I don't know, man. I just don't get it.
I mean, if I could refute that statement, I would, but I
you
cannot.
can't because and that's what, and that's why and it's like
I get
you know
paid.
what?
I get paid to keep my shirt on gigs. Like, let's be clear.
Drury, that was very millennial.
What?
If you were a little more modern, you would say the ick.
The ick.
The ick.
Guys are the
Guys
ick.
have the ick.
The ick.
Yeah.
I think, Wesley, can you fact check? Would they say you have
How are you
the
gonna
ick,
fact check that?
or you are the ick?
You said no.
I am genuinely upset that the term millennial now refers to being old.
You know what? You're right.
When did that happen?
Yeah.
Like, I miss when they
Wesley-
all hated us.
Yeah.
They have someone new to hate now.
Now we have these Tide Pod shooting losers called whatever, the
Oh my
Gen
God.
Z.
Are we the boomers now?
Yeah. Wesley, could you search
No. We haven't completely destroyed the economy
GenZ.com?
yet.
We're not boomers. We're like Gen X.
Yeah. But Gen X was cool. They were
Remember
like
Gen-
mostly cool.
They were, and then they just like disappeared.
No, it's just our parents.
They resigned from life.
GenZ.com.
Intelligent
ultra-fast charging solutions to power the future of e-mobility. Thanks, Wes.
Y'all
What have we
check out my
devolved
vehicle,
into?
my new convertible from Mercedes Gens.
Gens.
I've got to say, we've really evolved in that it used to take us till hour 3 or 4 before we started acting this way. Now we just do it after about 90 minutes.
We did a shot beforehand. I
What
feel
can
like
I
that
say?
helped.
I'm an enabler.
Tell us about your childhood. I'm just kidding.
We already talked about
Yeah,
that.
we just talked about-
man. I was listening to Rodney Atkins,
We're
and
talking
then
about
I got my full
Balin
circle
Hay.
moment. I got to play a show with him, and it was
Yeah,
awesome.
Remind me. Okay, so for somebody who doesn't listen to country music like me, tell me. I know the name Rodney Atkins, but what were his songs?
I mean, he has a lot. So I think the biggest one probably is "If You're Going Through Hell." That one
Sounds familiar,
If
but
you're
don't
going
remember.
through hell, keep on moving, don't slow down. That one, country anthem to this day. Like, and it's this was honestly my first experience like playing a full show, not just like an appearance, but a full show with an artist where basically every song on the set list, the audience was singing along to like every word. That really is cool. So he has that one. He has Farmer's Daughter is a Rodney Atkins song.
Oh, is that one like burr, 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 but the farmer's daughter?
Yep. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, which was me on the banjo doing that, by the way.
Oh,
that was
No,
fun.
that's dope.
Yeah. We
Is
did
that like I'm in love with the farmer's daughter?
Yep. He's working on the farm as a summer job, and he falls in love with the farmer's daughter. It's a good tune.
That
like
song
for a
there
is
we go.
so
country story
famous
song.
that me
Watching
as a
you.
Yeah, I've been watching you. That's the big one. We did play that as well.
I mean,
wait,
I mean, we're
bring that
acting like
back.
he's
Bring
like
that
an
back.
unknown, but like obviously
Take
a
a back
massive,
road.
massive star.
Yeah, it's
Watching you. I don't know that song.
We just don't know. him
Farmer's
that well.
Daughter is
It's-
so
it's-
famous
it's
that
the
I
one
don't know,
about-
even know who
It's the
he
one about
is,
the kid
and I know
spilling
it.
his the kid spills his Happy Meal and like cusses about it, and his dad freaks out, and his kid wants to be like him. But then in A-level country songwriting fashion, they flip the script in the second verse, and it becomes about he sees his kid like bowing down to pray for his family before he goes to bed, and he's like, "I learned that from you, Dad," and it's like,
Right.
"Aw,"
It's like a tear moment.
real heartwarming
Right.
song. It's a great song. I've seen, I think, all of the co-writers of that song play it at the listening room and around at this point. That's like one of those Nashville bingo things. Unofficial Nashville bingos, like how long have you lived here? It's like how many writers have you seen play I've been watching you at the listening room?
So this is a weird question, but how how does one go about getting these gigs? So for like somebody out there, if there is somebody listening who's like, oh my gosh, I'd love to play for Rodney Atkins or whoever that is for them now. You want to play for Keith Urban or who's cool now? I have no idea.
So
how do you get there?
Sideman work, I would say more than most of the other aspects of the music industry, is still very, very much based around word of mouth and relationships. So it is, someone who knows that there's an audition coming up and they get your name on the list, is basically how it goes. My case was completely different. I was this was a sub gig, so like I'm not full time with the band. I just stepped in for one show because it was in Canada, and this is not unique to any one artist. There are plenty of working music professionals that for one reason or another are not allowed to enter the Empire of Canada. And so I got called to sub on this gig, and this is after, I've spent so much of my career like prepping for these big auditions, and someone gets your name on the list. Okay, like send in your resume, send in your headshots, send in a video of you playing. Okay, we're going to have you in for an audition. Learn these songs, do them this way, play every fill note for note from the record, show up, do it. They never call you back. They don't even say thanks for coming in. You don't get the gig. Then, obviously, or arguably one of the most high-profile gigs I've ever done, which is this recent one with Rodney, I get a phone call, and they're like, hey, so-and-so recommended you to come play in 2 weeks. We need a sub for the show in Canada. I got 2 questions for you. And I'm like, okay, shoot. He goes, are you vaccinated? I'm like, yeah, I do military shows, so I have to be up to spec on that. And then he goes, great. Do you have any felonies? And I'm like
3
no.
or 4.
And he's like, you smug son of a bitch. You got the gig.
This guy sounds like he has a lot of felonies.
And I was like, really? That's all? You didn't need to hear me play? Nah. Okay.
You hear that, kids? If you've been vaccinated and you have no felonies,
You've made it.
you can play for Rodney
Atkins. A music career
Atkins.
is possible for you too.
Now,
let's be abundantly clear for the folks at home. There was a lot that qualified me for that
right,
gig.
I'm sure they looked you up. They heard some stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't blind.
It wasn't completely blind, but in the moment, it definitely felt like, wait, that was all that I need. I've been doing this all wrong. Like,
well, like props to you for not getting any felonies along the way.
Good job, man. That's
it's
hard.
really, it's mostly about not getting caught, if we're being real about it.
This episode is now called Kyle Pudenz.
So many
no
felonies.
felonies.
Now we are coming up pretty close here to our time, but before we do, there is a question that
Before we do what? Come to our time?
I'm sorry, do I need to be more explicit?
Yeah, it's a little weird.
It's almost time for us to hit stop recording on the show.
Okay.
Thank you.
If
Your
that's what you
grammar
mean.
was a little fucked.
Well, I'm not an Englishologist, but
Clearly.
but there is one question that we do ask every guest,
That's so true.
and you are no exception,
Oh, boy.
as you are a guest, and therefore must answer said
I
question.
literally didn't know this podcast existed until 3 hours ago.
But here's the thing.
This question has a sound effect.
It does. If you had to choose,
And you do.
and you do. Now, the important thing about this question is that the answer doesn't come from here.
And for the audio-only listeners, he is pointing to his head.
It must come from here.
Oh,
And for the
I'm
audio
so
only
glad you pointed to your heart.
listeners, thank you. Yes, he's pointing to his heart.
So if you had to choose,
And you do.
and you do.
And you do.
Now, what that actually means, not from the head, but from the heart, that means I need you to answer immediately.
Very quickly.
I don't want you to think about your answer.
Okay.
If you've thought about it, we've gone too far.
So we're looking for a
Correct.
snap decision. I
Thank
see.
you.
Snap decision,
Yes.
instant answer.
Absolutely.
From the
This guy
depths
gets
of
it.
your
Better
heart.
take a
100% understands.
If you had to choose.
And you do.
And you do.
And he does. Does he understand at this point that the decision is compulsory?
It's compulsory.
It's not like you get to choose if you do.
So
You do.
Okay, I
Exactly.
have to choose.
Thank you for understanding.
I get it.
If you had to choose.
And you do.
And you do.
And he does.
What would
Third
you
person.
say
Yeah. Here's the question.
is your favorite kind of turtle? Quickly!
Snapping.
Why?
Why?
Because they're freaking dinosaurs, man. How cool is that?
Snapping is snapping the most common answer we
Correct.
get, or is box?
Yes.
No, snapping. I think snapping's
Yeah.
number one answer.
In
we get.
like, I don't know, 60-ish times we've asked somebody's
at least like
favorite
half
turtle.
of it snapping.
Snapping is the most popular.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's mentioned that they are dinosaurs. Go on.
True.
Well, yeah, those things they allegedly have been around since like prehistoric times. So like they're literally evolved from the dinosaurs. I think that's pretty dope.
Snapping turtles evolved
the right one?
from
one?
dinosaurs. You can hear talking in the background. They are currently refilling Kyle's
Yeah, I mean
alcohol.
like we had a snapping turtle that lived in one of our ponds back when I grew up on
Sounds
the farm.
dangerous.
And, like,
There we go.
you
Every-
would,
Everyone has a turtle story we've
you
learned.
would you would see
Everyone
it,
like has a close, intimate relationship with a turtle.
you would see them pop out like from every once in a while. You would catch one like outside of the pond because they're very reclusive creatures, and like just looking at the thing, it was like looking at Godzilla, you know. But like
they get pretty big.
they're massive, and just like these claws of doom, you know, and like, you know, the dog's like staring at it like, what in the hell?
Your dog will lose that fight.
Yes, it would.
That thing will take off a dog's leg.
Yeah, they're nuts, man. I mean, like, how many other creatures are that you could just like see in a farm in Missouri that like look like they should be at a zoo? So my answer is snapping.
That's fair. That's fair.
Now, real quick question. As somebody who actually grew up on a farm in Missouri, could you answer how many other creatures there are that could take off a dog's leg?
Oh, that could take off a dog's leg.
That is the benchmark.
I mean, yeah,
Depends on the size of the dog, but you know.
I mean, besides those turtles, like I wouldn't say there's really any. I mean,
There's no lions in Missouri.
maybe like
Bobcats?
if
bobcats. They gotta have bobcats in Missouri. Right?
yeah, but I don't think it would snap its leg. You know, they'll claw you to death.
Do you have mountain lions? Do you
We
got
did,
do you
yeah.
have mountains?
Every once in a while, someone would see a mountain lion.
Yeah, because those are
That was a big
those
deal.
could do it, but
Yeah.
that's rare.
I mean, if it's a tiny dog, like tiny dogs would get scooped up by like hawks and eagles, and if they dropped them, that would break a leg.
That's
We
terrifying.
recently had an episode with a band called Dawson Hollow from Missouri
Mm-hmm.
who talked, and the episode is called Eagle Powers.
They're from Springfield, Missouri.
No.
Or near
Lebanon,
Springfield?
near Springfield. Do
It's
you know Lebanon,
pronounced
Missouri?
Lebanon.
Yes, Lebanon,
Lebanon?
Missouri.
Do not use the correct pronunciation of the country.
I mean, it's the
It
same
was
thing here
named.
with
Yeah.
Tennessee, right?
Lafayette.
It's well, I mean, Lebanon,
And Lebanon,
Tennessee.
yeah.
It's just people just go Lebanon.
But really, the one that takes the cake, I feel like, is Versailles. And there is one in Tennessee and Missouri.
Is it spelled like Versailles?
Yep.
Oh, that's real rough. But you know which one always bugs me? Is the city where the baseball bats are from.
Louisville.
Louisville Sluggers,
Yeah.
right? That's what you call them, Louisville Sluggers. That's not what they call the town.
Louisville.
Lowell. I'm like, you're incorrect. It was named after King Louis, not King Law.
Louisville.
That one bugs the hell
I
out of
drove
me.
through there last night.
We did-
Actually, it was just outside of
Louisville.
that I almost killed the Amish.
we had a
the
guy on the show. Who
singular
was it
Amish.
we had on the show who was from there and called it Louisville? And I like made a big deal about it because I was so happy that someone from there called it
So
that.
I used to tour with this rock band back in my college days that they played for this really like shitty crowd in Louisville, and they had a terrible time. And so they just the next like for the last hour of the show, they just made a point of saying Louisville as many times as possible. Like, this is our first time in Louisville. We're so glad to be here.
They're gonna get murdered after the show.
That's awesome. Now, producer Wesley has a very important question.
Yes.
What?
If you had to choose.
And you do?
And thank you. Wow. You're a quick study. Quick study. Have you eaten a turtle before?
Oh, is that what that text said? You put on the screen. I couldn't see it fast enough.
I have not.
Same,
I have
haven't.
had escargot, but a snail is not a turtle.
Are you sure?
That
They
is
both have
true. I
shells.
want to call this episode a snail's not a turtle.
Snail is
now.
not a turtle.
Yeah.
You really got to wait for the end.
Exactly.
Get the reference.
Somebody sees that, like, what does it mean? And they're going to watch all the way to the end to find that.
And then just feel so satisfied.
And also not send their kids to Belmont University.
For the record, this whole time, you have legitimately not said anything bad about Belmont.
Yeah, I'm really good at that.
I have said a lot of bad many times on this show, and but that you haven't. So well done, sir. If I could have gotten out of you, I would. But
This has been Try to Trick the Guest to Hate Belmont, the podcast.
I mean, okay, just before we wrap up, because I know we got it, but I do want to say Belmont's not worse than most colleges. It just also is a college. I just happen to personally be involved with Belmont, and so it's my label for all expensive schools.
Thanks, Mike Herb.
No, I've heard he's actually cool. I've never met him, but I heard he's a cool dude. But anyways, are you going with that out?
Great job with that wrap up, guys.
No, you're waiting for that. But anyways, before we leave, though, where can people find you? Where can they see you? Where can they hear your music? Where can they learn more about you?
I think I know.
Oh, so
The internet.
the internet is correct. So my website
I meant more like
is,
your home address, but that's fine.
My website is kylepudenz.com. It's Pudenz, Pudenz. You can find me on Instagram at the Violin Vagabond. And you can see me out on the road. I'm currently working with a band called Honey County, as well as a variety of freelance shows. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you'll see them pop up. I'll announce dates and such and all that. You can also, and I am so proud to say this, and I'm not going to give you guys the chance to dig into it because it's right in the end. You can hear my work on the latest episode on the Blues Clues Nursery Rhymes YouTube channel.
Why would you not bring this up earlier? Why would you not bring this up earlier?
Both of the fiddle parts on their reimagining of Hey Diddle Diddle.
Now we have to have you back for episode 2.
Now we have another hour of this show.
Anyways, guys, as always,
I just feel like
I was about to do the outro, but
just figured out Blues Clues. Because we're really smart.
But anyways, guys, as always, thanks for coming to hang out with us on Musical Hideout, and we will see y'all next time.